Yo, yo, what up, guys? Happy Thursday. I'm going to start off by saying I am tired as hell. It's busy season at work, and so it's just trying to do all this other stuff and then working like long hours is tiring and like locking in it's been a long month and we're not going to slow down for like the next 2 months. So it's tough. I'm tired. I hope everyone's having a good week. I have a big weekend this weekend actually. I'm surprising. I helped my friend lose 100 pounds in like 4.5 months. And his dad's side of the family, they live in Washington State. They have no idea he lost weight. So we're going to surprise him this weekend. So I'll be in Seattle slash like this small town called Richmond, I think is what it's called, all weekend. So yeah, that's exciting, but yeah, I'm tired. But we gotta keep it pushing, right? And anyways, so a lot of things I talk about, like I have a list of things that I always write down for ideas, topics, and things to talk about. But sometimes, or a lot of the time, actually, topics like pop up into my brain and during the week. It just depends on if, like, if I have a deep conversation with someone, that will like go on my podcast list if I find it interesting. And so this week, I was actually talking about what I was talking with a friend, like what really makes girls attractive or people attractive, right? And so after the conversation, I kind of was sitting there and I thought for like a long time, like what really does make people attractive? And so my conclusion, what I came to is I think purpose. And that sounds cliche, but basically I thought about, oh, what girls, well, first off, I'm a cocky ass bitch. So I don't really think many people are out of my league, many girls are out of my league. Obviously some are, but I looked back and I thought, okay, when I thought a girl was out of my league, why? And a lot of time it's because I felt like they had purpose. And let me explain what that means. But if you think about it, basically everyone in the world wants to be attractive, right? In many ways. Physically, so they go to the gym all the time, right? They work out, they eat healthy, even crazier surgery, which is a lot. People want to be good looking, so they get plastic surgery, get all kinds of surgery, BBL, whatever. A lot of people think that attractiveness comes with status. That is true. Attractiveness comes with money. That is true. But like I said, what I find most attractive, and I think what a lot of people would find if they thought about it, what is most attractive about someone is just they have purpose. So, what that means is, right, this person or whatever, they know they're going somewhere, right? They know what direction they're going. They know who they are. They have a mission or a purpose, but more importantly, they just know who they are, and you could tell when someone has a purpose, mostly because of how confident they are, and we'll get into that here a bit later about the confidence part of having purpose. But yeah, yeah, like when I look back and I talk to a girl at the bars, or if I talk to somebody at the bar or whatever, right? If I just met a girl, every single time it's been rare, like I said, but when I think back and I was like, wow, they for sure knew who they were. They for sure knew where they were going. They for sure had a mission. They for sure just know, right? And I find that very, very attractive, but also so attractive that sometimes I'd be like, dang, this person might be out of my league, which is crazy. Anyways, so let's get into like what does purpose actually mean? And that word's thrown around a lot, thrown around in movies. I think many people have different definitions, which is fine, right? But it's a bit cliche, the idea of purpose, purpose, purpose. And first off, let me talk about. I think purpose is mistaken a lot for things like goals, like their career. Right? They think their career is their purpose. They think money is their purpose. They think talent is their purpose, which I get. I get why that could be confusing, but in reality, I think this is like the best definition. Shout out ChatGPT a little bit, but also had like just like kind of read it, kind of just touched on a few things before I put it all together. But really, purpose is what you are here to express, solve, or bring into the world that feels deeply meaningful to you. And it's funny though, because that definition still can be cliche. Because what does that mean? What does it mean for something to be deeply meaningful? I think that's already hard to think about. So, and that's why in this, just in the world and in society, purpose is very just cliche because even when you try to define it, it still is hard to define, right? So that's the best definition I come up with. What you are here or what you think you're here to express, solve, or bring into the world that just really means something to you. And so next step is, what does it mean when something is meaningful, right? And so imagine this. It's this intersection, right? This intersection of these three questions, and you try to meet in the middle. You try to find something that hits all these categories, but it's mostly just three. But really, first of all, what moves you emotionally? And it's like, well, what does that mean? And that means it's what makes you feel something? What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel that life is worth living? If you look back in moments in your life, maybe when you were playing sports, right? Maybe that moved you emotionally, or maybe when you were helping others, maybe when you were being there for a friend, moved you emotionally. Things like that make sense. Next, and this has to do with talent, but I'll explain why talent is like mistaken for purpose. But what things are you naturally drawn towards? What things are you good at, or what things that do you want to be good at, or what kind of things? Like for example, it could be games. Maybe someone's just really into games. It could be any kind of game, board games, video games, whatever. Or maybe someone's really into just athletics or like just physical activity. So weightlifting, climbing, running, whatever. Does that make sense? So, and then what are you actually good at too? That matters. Now the next thing is a harder question. But what does the world need? And what I mean by that is, what can you bring into the world? What can you express? What can you solve? Or what can you just truly create that you think the world needs? Or maybe that you just need, in my opinion. It doesn't have to just be the world that you need, right? So, but more importantly, purpose, like I said, purpose is, right, is not goals, career, your money, or talent, right? Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you choose to commit to and embody. And I think the best way to explain this is, you could change careers throughout your life, right? Fine. You can change your goals. But what your purpose is why you're doing those things, why you have these goals, why you have this career. It's basically your why. Does that make sense? So, purpose basically is the reason behind your actions. And yeah, and I've thought about this idea of purpose for a long time just because if you think about it, it's hard to define. Like I've been saying, it's just hard to define. Because I used to think, for example, that purpose was like your goal. Okay, my purpose is to be huge in this company. But really, in reality, it's just the reason why you're doing the things you do. It's that simple. So, and like, I'll give you some examples. For me, right? Even though this podcast doesn't get many views, fine. That's cool. But my purpose and my is, and I kind of thought about this. So I used to, since I've been growing up, my friends always call me like an old man, right? And it's because I have some like wisdom about me, and I like to challenge people, and I like to really encourage people to make better decisions if they're not. I've been like that my whole life. You can ask anyone that knows me. You can ask people that know me now. It's just the truth. So my purpose, my purpose is, I like to help others. I like to encourage others to do better. I like to help others. And so that's the reason for this podcast. Does that make sense? It's really that simple. And another purpose could be, well, it's kind of funny that I'm thinking about this, but my sister-in-law, she's like a very, very good mom, really good. And I think about, well, Did having kids give her purpose? No, but I think she naturally probably had a very like, she likes being a caretaker, right? She likes to be a provider, and I think that's what the purpose behind her being such a good mom, if that makes sense. So, those are the best examples I got, but that are real life. But you guys could probably think of many examples. So, yeah, that's what purpose actually means. It's confusing. It can be confusing. Honestly, it's still the thing about purpose is, right, I think this is why it's most cliche. It is hard to find. It's not just an easy answer. It's never gonna be an easy answer. You're gonna have to soul search. But anyway, I was just trying to define it. And yeah, I hope that helped. I hope maybe you should start asking yourself, well, like just soul searching a bit, asking yourself why you've been doing the things you do, if you're working, why you have a certain career, and I hope that helps you out a bit. But yeah, I find that people with purpose, people who knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, they are the most attractive, they are the most confident. I truly believe that. And that stems from, well, I'm just gonna get into that in a second. But before I get into like the psychology of why purpose, someone having purpose or purpose is attractive, let's first talk about what happens when you don't have purpose. And I think this is super common. It's a lot of people, even me, for the longest time. I'm getting better because I think I'm starting to find and do things with purpose and with intent. But what happens when you don't have purpose? I think it's a pretty good question. And I think for sure this might hit home for a lot of people watching. But when you don't have purpose, a man or a woman with like no purpose, no direction, they tend to seek validation, identity, or like meaning from outside sources. And the best example of that would be relationships, right? So specifically, well, it could be friendships, but romantic relationships. So I think for a lot of people, when they don't have purpose and so they seek purpose from external validation, especially romantic relationship or just honestly any kind of external validation. It could be your friends, like you just want to be cool with your friends, you want to be cool to your friends, but your mood, confidence, and self worth they rise and fall based on how men, women, or just how people respond to you. And so when that happens, external validations replace internal direction. So you start doing things not for you, not because you want to, not because it makes you feel good, not because it makes you fulfilled or makes you happy. Instead, you start doing things for others. You start maybe doing the trendy things because your friends are doing it. Makes them and makes you include you in the group, or you start wearing a certain way, you start talking a certain way, you start acting a certain way to pick up women, right? Or yeah, but most importantly, you just start doing things that you normally wouldn't do or that isn't you, or you start acting in a way that isn't you to get this external validation. And this is super common. It could be from more than just people, but that's like the best example because I see it over and over and over again. And unfortunately, I'm a victim to this as well. I think for like a very long time, if I'm being honest, just a lot of the external validation from women. That's what made me feel good. But deep down, I didn't feel good about myself. Deep down, I just had like basically purposeless. They're filling that gap, right? Um, but yeah, that's just a super common thing. And I think you guys can probably think of many people who do that, who get external validation. And that's okay. That's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with that. That's very common, but it's just like I'm saying, if you have purpose, if you find a purpose, you'll just be so much more attractive. I think this is the number one way to be attractive and the number one way to build confidence. And let's get into that, right? What is the psychology behind attractiveness sorry, this psychology behind purpose being attractive? Well, first off, let's start. I think a lot of people that do think if they meet someone with purpose, they must have a lot of status or it's like impressive, but that's not really why it's impressive. I think it's impressive because when someone they know where they're going, They know who they are. They know why they're doing it. It signals that they're stable and they're safe. And something interesting about the human brain. So now this is just logical, and something that the human brain does over and over and over again is it's always scanning for safety, right? And the safe option, or it's just what it naturally does. It's in our genetics. So, what is someone who is considered safe, right? So, say if someone you're dating or someone you know, you feel safe with them. What does that mean, or why do they feel safe? Well, I think a couple of things, especially if someone that you're meeting that's new. But and this is people who have purpose usually have these things, these attributes. That's why. But they usually have consistent routines because they know what they're doing, they know what they want, they know why they're doing it. So they have consistent routines because they know. They know what direction they're going, they know what direction. So they know what direction they're going and they know what it's going to take to go that direction. And so they have consistent routines. Another great thing is they have emotional regulation. So, once again, their feelings, their emotions, their confidence, their mood, their self-worth does not rise and fall based on others. They're emotionally regulated. Their mood maybe just might rise and fall based on if whatever their purpose is going well or not. But in reality, most people who have purpose and know who they are and don't need validation from anybody but themselves are really emotionally regulated, right? And the last thing, I think this is the most important, is people who have purpose, people who move with purpose, people who are intentful. They just have clear priorities, bro. And that's, to me, super attractive, right? When, like I said, like I mean, everyone could probably relate to this. When you meet someone and you can tell you know what they want and you know who they are, and they're not faking it, they're not trying to win you over or whatever. They're genuine. It's just right. They have clear priorities. It's attractive, and it feels safe. It makes you feel safe, right? So I think the number one attribute to why someone having purpose, why purpose is attractive, is it signals stability. Next, though, now we can go back to, I think, relationships or whatever. But when someone has purpose, it reduces their neediness of others because they can rely on themselves, right? And when you don't need others, when you're not needy, it truly increases your confidence. When all you need is yourself, when you know you got yourself, when you respect yourself, when you love yourself, and you know that even if someone else doesn't love you, care about you, or doesn't, give you the validation you want, you can give yourself the validation. If that truly is the case, you might be in the top 1% of confident people. If that truly is the case. So think about that for a second. So even if I'm not saying like you have to be perfect, right? Obviously everyone needs a little bit of validation from the outside world. That's normal. But if you truly have a purpose, or if you truly are moving with intent and you truly know who you are, at least, if you truly know that, and we've all met people who do, that confidence, you can tell they're confident, right? You can feel it. You can feel the vibe. I don't even need to tell you. You can just tell the people who know who they are and why they know who they are and why they are so confident, because they know who they are. And so, and the most confident people, they don't need external validation. They're confident with themselves. And so, when you get rid of this external validation because you know who you are, you know how you're moving, right? Your self-worth starts to come from inside, not outside anymore. It's inside. And so when you don't need reassurance, when you don't need people telling you this is dope, this is not dope, whatever, you're not reactive anymore, like I said. So you're like I mentioned earlier, you're emotionally regulated. You're not reactive because you don't need reassurance. You know who you are and you're going to stand on it. And that's a beautiful thing, because I see so many people, counting myself, we're reactive to trends, reactive to what people think of us. But since I started this podcast, I'm not going to cap it. Let me just be real with you guys for a second. Mentally struggling bad. Quarter life crisis style, just terrible. The worst. On my coming up to my 25th birthday and a bit after, just depressed, going to therapy. Not just, yeah, not happy. The opposite of happy. Sad as fuck. Angry, everything. Mostly depressed though. And then I just said, you know what? Maybe if you started doing things you wanted to do, not caring what others think, and just do you, be you. Be who you want to be. I feel so much better. That stems from this podcast. That stems from making content, right? Even if it's not, yeah, it doesn't get a lot of views. And I'm telling you, I bust my ass. Like, I go hard. My cameraman knows. He goes hard too, but my cameraman knows I go hard. Like, I work full time, plus I do this. It's hard. That's tiring. And, the juice, numbers wise, right? Or making money or whatever, it's for sure, as of right now, not worth the squeeze at all. Like, we're putting in work week after week after week after week and not getting the results we want. But at the same time, interestingly enough, the result I wanted or thought of is to have purpose and to do what I want and to just feel good about what I'm doing. And that's because I'm doing something that I want to do. I don't care about what others think. For the first time in my life, well, every decision I made up to this point, really, is because of others. I went to college because my teacher said I want to graduate high school. I became an accountant because it's stable, and I want people to know that I'm stable and have a good job, right? So there's things like that. But next, right? So that's just me getting into how just doing something I want to do, moving in the direction that I just want to go, and knowing where I'm gonna go, really has just helped so much. But another thing, yeah, it's helped to understand who I am, right? So getting into that, right? Purpose anchors your identity. When you know who you are, there is no need to shapeshift, right? There's no need to act a certain way, like I mentioned earlier, for validation. There's no need. You could just be who you truly are. You can be who you want to be. And when someone is truly who they want to be, I think this gives off certain vibes, right? So first of all, if you truly are who you want to be, you're not shapeshifting, you're not switching up to just be liked by certain groups or whatever. You're consistent with who you are. You're more genuine. These things to lead you to being more trustworthy, and then you end up being more grounded. And all those traits, genuine, consistent, trustworthy, grounded, are all super, super attractive traits. Traits that are hard to find, especially at our age. And then if you have those traits, like I said, I keep saying, if you know who you are, you are the most confident person on this planet. The most confident. And confidence is probably one of the main things that attracts people, in my opinion. So, and I think another thing that I find super attractive, and this purpose helps with this, is when you move with purpose, move with intent, know what you want to do, you respect yourself to another level, right? Because now you're taking life serious. Now you know where you're going, you know what needs to be done. You start taking life serious. And then you start taking your time serious. And when I see someone who respects themselves, respects their time, uses their time with intent, really focuses and takes life serious, that is super attractive. The messed up part is I've been with women, been on this with girls who truthfully don't have time, never didn't have time for me, didn't have time to be serious with somebody. And I found that very, very attractive because it's obvious they have self-respect and they know what they want with their life and they take life and their time serious. So even though it broke my heart at the same time, it's the truth. But yeah, and it's not like, once again, and this is why I find myself like imposter syndrome. Not that I'm not practicing what I preach, because I do, but because I'm not at the point where I'm just like, oh, I'm the master of everything. I'm zen this, zen that. Really, in reality, I'm the opposite of perfect. I don't know shit, but I'm working on it, and I'm just speaking on things that I'm going through and trying to find. And they've helped me, so I'm hoping even if one person watches this, it helps you, right? Even if it's one person says, all right, I'm gonna start thinking about why I chose this, or I'm gonna start thinking about why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm acting this way, whatever, and start thinking about who they are, and it digs them out of a hole, or they next in 1 year from now they come back and they're like, yo, this podcast about purpose really just made me find my way. Or even if for the people watching that feel ugly or feel like things aren't going well, I promise you this. If you feel sad because you're not getting girls, if you feel sad you're not getting boys or whatever, trust me, if you really start to focus on your purpose and things like that, you won't feel so sad anymore. And you will pull way more anyways, but it won't matter because all you'll need is truly yourself. Anyways, Hope everyone's having a good week. Like I said earlier, it's Thursday. Weekend's almost here. I hope everyone has a good weekend. Be safe. As always, have fun. Spend time with the people you love. I like to big message of mine. And yeah, thank you for watching. I love you guys. Peace.